Jay Massey is a full-time real estate investor. He's an entrepreneur.
He also teaches people how to find deals, raise capital for real estate investments.
Meeting Jay Massey in person, you'd think he's just a regular guy. He's got jeans and a t-shirt on and a pair of sneakers. But he's built up a multi-million-dollar empire.
I hope you do have an empty notebook because it's going home filled.
Jay gives back so much value that I've never seen.
Now, at this moment, when I'm looking at the kitchen, things are going through my head.
You want to be friends with him, and he treats you like you're the only person in the room, even though it's for the benefit of everybody.
This is how, when you ask yourself, how does Jay do it? This is how.
He tells people that they have to take action, and they have to take action now. I took the action, and the results have paid off.
What happens when the marketplace understands who we are and how we go out there?
Hey guys, people of all ages, how are you doing? Hopefully things are going well. If you saw the title, if you were around in April, maybe March, you remember that title, or at least that title should sound a little familiar actually. And I kind of wanted to revisit it for a completely different reason, but more or less also make sure that maybe some of you haven't finished doing the work. And that's also to say that the work really isn't finished anyway, but also to give us all an update on where we might be considering it. So for those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. Hi, my name is Jay, CEO of CashFlowDiary. What we do is we help you become an entrepreneur, whether that means you are one right now or you're looking to become a better one. The goal is to teach you, help you see the world in such a way that you are enabled, empowered to be able to build streams of cash flow. We do so specifically always focusing on real estate, specifically real estate related strategies, and yes, short-term rentals. However, the concepts, the ideas, the things that we suggest, they're definitely not limited to that industry. So which is to also say, if you have a question around real estate, business, cash flow, etc., go ahead and type that in the chat. And ultimately, our goal right now in the short time that we have together today is to assist you with some thoughts, some ways of thinking about your business or the business that you are about to begin or the business that you were in a pre-COVID situation, and so that you can continue that business and make it grow. Obviously, as always, we're going to give you the update around the situation inside the short-term rental, dare I say, hospitality travel industry, but also give you a special tool today and a way to go access it so that you can continue the work long after your short time here with us today is over. So if you like that, do us a favor, go ahead and hit like on this video. For those of you watching on YouTube, feel free to say hello as well. And everyone, go ahead and type new in the chat if this is your first time, because we would definitely like to welcome you. With that being said, what we want to talk about today specifically is, as the title says, the impact of the corona crisis on your business model, on your short-term rental business. Now, to say that there has been no impact is an understatement for everybody. There's no such thing. Every business, every person has been impacted in some way, shape, or form. And okay, now that's also part of the good news though, and we'll definitely get to that part, but I want to give you the framework for which you can use to be able to put yourself in a completely different situation. And for those who have been following along, learning along, and becoming more all the way through this, you already know that you are becoming a part of the solution as well. So if you remember this, for those of you who were here before, we're going to be revisiting this workbook in of itself. And for those of you who haven't, and you have no clue what that is, don't worry about it. We'll definitely talk about it today and make sure that you have a way to get access to it for free, of course. Anyway, the goal, or actually first, let's do some of the standard update stuff as it relates to the short-term rental or hospitality industry. And we're going to go to our standard indicator with Skift research. So as you can see now, interestingly, they have decided now we do have the ability to do the global weighted score, which is pretty much what you see right there. Or we can also then begin to break this down by country. Whoops. There we go. So in case you had some sort of understanding or interest in understanding how the score or what the score might look like from country to country. But in general, for those of you who have not seen the Skift Recovery Index before, with 2019 being the base as 100, relative to 2019, you can look at this and go, oh, cool, we're 43% of the way back. I would encourage you to, you can adopt that as a position, but also understand that it does not mean it is going to somehow increase in speed in terms of the rest of the way. All right, the rest of the way. If you've been following along for any of the research reports that we've covered, anytimes we've dug into the consumer sentiment and exactly how and what's happening inside the travel world, you'll understand exactly why that 43 is kind of the number we've been at for a while and likely will be the number that we're going to be at for some time to come. Now, with that being said, I know that there's a number of you who are listening and are watching over in the land down under. So simply because I know that, I'll go ahead and get your score. You're closer to a 33, which is not so great. And then I also know the UK is well represented from individuals who are watching as well. And you're closer to a 36 at the moment. Either way it goes, regardless of where you are geographically, you have witnessed, watched, and seen all kinds of things happening here recently as it relates to the economy. Now, I come from the school of thought that what we do as entrepreneurs is solve problems. We're not necessarily, I don't care who caused the problem or how the problem got caused. I care that there is a problem that the marketplace wants to have a solution to, and that there is a problem that the marketplace is willing to put their dollars behind. To say it a different way, that they are willing to vote with currency regarding which problems they wish to have solved. And our job as a entrepreneur is to organize the resources of others, put them to productive capacity, and solve whatever that problem might be that we believe we can build not only a solution for, but obviously a system and a team. And in our world, we call that short-term rentals, because the need for temporary housing has not changed. Okay. And because that need has not changed, we, the entrepreneurs, must find a way to still meet that need, even despite the changes, I should say, that have gone on around us. Now, that is actually the first place where we're going to start from today. So I've got a number of small points that'll come at you hopefully quickly. What this translates into is, some of you, you already see the transcription right there on your screen. Great. Others of you, you're going to want to take notes. Always remember the recordings will be just right there for you. But ultimately, towards the end, there'll be a small time for questions and answers. If you have a question around real estate, business, something of that nature, cash flow, etc., now, as in right now o'clock is the time to go ahead and put that in the chat to guarantee yourself an opportunity that I actually see it. And unless you don't want it answered, then that's also fine too. But I would encourage you to put it in there now. You can try to wait later, but I can't guarantee, because sometimes there's a delay between me asking and you typing. So just know that. But the sooner you put it there, the better for everyone to see. We'll do our best to get to all of those questions. Just understand, though, it's nothing. If you don't get your question answered, it's not because I don't like you. It's because I didn't see it. All right. It has nothing to do with that. So you can keep the email hate to yourself on that one. Now, as I said earlier, the recovery index is an index that Skiff has managed and has been watching and making sure that we all have some frame of reference. We understand what's going on. Sorry. Hold on 1 second. I just saw you guys. Yes, we're working on this. I'm going to back up from the camera just a tad so that you can see what today's t-shirt is. This is a thing that continually happens. 1 second. Okay. You still can't see it. It just simply says, when you feel like quitting. Yes. When you feel like quitting. Yes. Think about why. Yes. When you feel like quitting, think about why you started. That is ultimately what we're talking about today as well. Because depending on how things have transpired for you during this time, your life is dramatically different in some way, shape, or form, or maybe you just think differently, which is also good. And at the end of the day, you could just be looking for something different. All things that are required for successful entrepreneurs. So let's get down to it. When we're talking about the recovery index, while we keep using it, there's one thing I don't like about it very specifically, and that's the name recovery, because it can give us the impression or the thought that I want to go back to the way things were, right? How many of you are willing to admit that maybe that's something you've thought? Like, give me a little hand up emoji in the chat if that was you, where you said, I just can't wait till it's all over and it goes back. Or you said it, maybe you didn't say back to the way things were, you said it goes back to normal, right? Or I want some form of normalcy, or something like that. If you've said something like that, give me a little hands up emoji in the chat, because this is important. This is really important to understand, right? And also understand that the fact that you've said that or felt that or wanted that is normal. I mean, when a crisis, which is clearly what has occurred, happens, it is normal. It is a standard human reaction to want to exit the crisis as soon as humanly possible. And by that, we typically mean just go back to the way things were, right? Because the response physiologically, it's usually not pleasant. It's not something we're enjoying at the moment. And depending on the level of shock we've experienced, that can also have a equal and opposite reaction in terms of the intensity, I guess you could say, with which we are trying to get back to what we remember or called, good times, because that's what we're looking for. That, what's the word? Mentality is not going to serve you or me or anyone who is in choosing to become an entrepreneur in any way, shape, or form in a go forward basis. Trying to get back to how things were will not help you lead or move your company forward at all, because that is called the past, and that is called history. That is called the way things were, not are, or even will be, because they must change. A lot of who we are and how businesses work were informed by the good, the bad, the different, the indifferent that has happened. There have been so many things to happen on so many different levels, from socioeconomics to race relations to health and safety, to just understanding, how crises are born by our own populations in every country. So much learning has occurred, which means now that we are informed differently, we will respond and do things differently. Here's probably the chief thing that I think that many of us are still feeling, in fact, right now today, as I stream or record, or you stand in grocery stores and watch me on your on your phone or whatever you're doing, is the supply chain. The supply chain in and of itself, everything that you and I have wanted, tried to go to the store to obtain, things that you were used to obtaining either quickly or in sufficient quantity or what have you, has changed. How fast something comes to you, or how quickly the store's inventory is replenished, how many stores you may have to go to, assuming you have access to a store, to even get the thing done. The supply chain is easy to look at and go, oh my goodness, it is having a dramatic effect on everything. And this is very, very true. The supply chain even includes the access to commodities. And just understand, when I say commodities, I'm primarily thinking about the components that go into a house, because that's ultimately what a house or a piece of real estate is it's a collection of commodities, right, that have been organized. You got your wood. You understand? So wood, commodity. So the process of, again, assembling those commodities in such a fashion to turn them into a useful good, that has changed. In fact, many of us have been to Home Depot more than ever, right? And you know who you are, because we each have decided that we are using real estate completely differently than you were before. Right? Even if you are back in an office working, which there aren't many of you, according to many of the studies that I've read, but there are some. Even if you're back in an office working, even that environment has changed, and there's nothing that hasn't been touched. Right? How you go to work, when you go to work, what you do when you're at work, that has even nothing to do with your physical work in and of itself. Right? We are way more conscious about a number of things, whether you want to be or not. And we're also, more of us are conscious about our effect on other people as well. Where, again, regardless of what you believe and whether you want to wear a mask or not, that this is not what this conversation is about. What it's about is that the consciousness, the understanding, the how we do business has changed. And I am also saying, for those of you who felt like the way things were before really wasn't working anyway, this is your opportunity. And I intend to I'm going to go through a framework here that will assist you in creating your new opportunity for yourself, literally right now. So hopefully you're ready to take some notes and make it happen, because that's just how we do. So while yes, the recovery isn't evident, I also submit for your own acceptance that, do you really want to get that back? Just ask yourself a question. Do you really want to get that back? Was it really that good that it couldn't be better, no matter what you did? Or it was so good that, man, if it just stayed that way, you would have been the best version of you. And I find myself that, while, yeah, I don't enjoy the process that we're all undergoing together, I find myself saying and knowing and understanding that, hey, I've become and will become and continue to become a better person because of it. I have had to make changes that I never thought I would do. And it has allowed the company to do more, become more, thus us to serve even more people, which I absolutely appreciate. Things that would have never happened any other way. But ultimately, it's around this document right here. It's called The Impact of the Corona Crisis on Your Business Model. Now, this document that I'm showing you is actually a workbook that was created by two individuals, Thomas Ritter and Karsten Lund Pedersen, over from the Copenhagen Business School. Now, as you guys know, college dropout, so it's not like I went to the Copenhagen Business School. What actually happened was two things simultaneously. There's a friend of mine who said, hey, you should start, what do you think about reading the Harvard Business Review? And I was complaining something to the effect of how their app was backwards and all this other stuff, and still is. But I subscribed anyway, because at that time, the deal that they were offering was really great. And around the middle of April, they produced this article right here. I'm trying to make it a little bit bigger. Let me see if I do this screen like so. Okay, let me see if I can make it even bigger. There we go. All right. So they produced this particular article, which is simply assessing coronavirus's impact on your business model. Now, I'm sharing this with you so you can go link to it, something, get it, please. Right? All right. Go, because linked inside this article is a link to the file that I was referring to a second ago. Right? And that's right here. And they call it a framework. And this is the document we're going to be focused on and just the first parts of it, because we do not have time to go through it. However, I need to explain why it's important for you, your business, and your financial future that you understand and treat this document with the appropriate amount of respect. Because again, yes, while it's free, as in it doesn't cost you any money, it does definitely cost you an investment of time, and it is worth it. The number one thing that all of us as humans should be doing with our time is investing them into creating assets that benefit ourselves and our family in some way, shape, or form. Something that you can own, control, manage, etc., so that you can derive income from someone else's use of the thing. That is the thing, right? How can you develop an asset? What this workbook, if should you choose to complete it, it'll help you develop any asset, but I'm going to put it in the context of short-term rentals so that those of you who are still finding and possibly trying to wiggle your way through the business, but feeling like you might lack some direction, can have some understanding. And for those of you who have been following, you most importantly have a way to update yourself in case you've forgotten about this document. Okay. All right. So between referencing the article and referencing the document, I'm just going to bounce back and forth. But ultimately, there are 8 things that I want you to take away. 8. Yes, 8. The main one is under the understanding of alignment squared, which again, Ritter and Pedersen is a methodology. I think I got it right that time. John, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it is the methodology that they developed to help business owners specifically pivot is the popular word, but it's a great crisis management response. And we're going to come back to that in just a second. But the major thing that I must illustrate is this part right here. This was by far the most important piece when everything was falling apart. And we were watching tens of thousands of dollars of recurring revenue literally disappear in like 3 days. It was scary, y'all. I got no other way to put it. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen right now. Because in that 3-day period, we watched $80,000 of recurring revenue disappear like poof. And because being in the hospitality industry, not only did your revenue disappear, but you had no way of replacing that revenue because you couldn't get a new customer either. So it was like, okay, so, and so let's be clear, all of the cancellations that hurt. What was deadly was not being able to replace the revenue. And you couldn't replace the revenue because where the majority of our customers were coming from, and specifically for us on the West Coast, or me specifically out here in Los Angeles, in Orange County, we were heavily dependent on the Asian business traveler. So business travel to and from or between any parts of Asia and LA and US and whatnot, that was like kind of our bread and butter, except now 100% gone. International travel was shut down. And I'm just trying to explain to you that in business, there will be times where you will experience a crisis of, who knows, many different kinds. But what made this exceptionally unique, keywords, exceptionally unique, is that there was, as I said, not only was there not a way to replace your customer, but in the hospitality world, in the short-term rental world, every avenue of how you would normally market for a customer was suddenly gone. So regardless of how long you had been in business, you were experiencing like the hat trick of tragedy. I have no other way of putting it. You lost every reservation, okay, because cancellation rates went way high. All right, 90+% and then some. Then you couldn't replace a new customer because nobody was allowed in the country, and no one was really trying to go anywhere. Okay, and how you normally would attract customers, whether that be international, all your other, there was that all of those avenues and roads were closed. All of that happened in a matter of 3 days. Yet at the same time, again, if you're running a business, you got staff, you got expenses, you got all of the things that you have to deal with. And this is not missed on any of us now. Okay, we got that. But the first step to being able to survive a crisis, okay, is to understand this very next thing. So I want you to please, somebody write it in the chat. I'm going to give you all 3 steps, but I want you to really hear what I am saying. Okay, this is the beginning of just understanding, what do I do? The first thing is exactly as this says. Once a crisis has hit, there are only 3 phases to consider. There are only 3 to consider. It's another way of saying nothing else matters except understanding these 3 phases. This is 3 of the 8 things that I was referring to. Is to remember that during a crisis, there's a phase called during the crisis. Okay. So in that phase, there's a method of operations that needs to be followed. And then there becomes a phase eventually that is right after the crisis. This is okay. Whew, we finally got that under control. Now, how do we operate, right? And then there's new normal. This is, okay, so what did we learn? What could we have done better? How do we prevent that from happening again? But we're still moving forward, right? Understanding these 3 things during the crisis, right after the crisis, and the new normal was the first thing that allowed me to have some context to be able to direct myself, my company, and to lead others through everything that this was the first, because we needed a way to box this stuff in. And so that we could process everything that was happening at the speed at which it was happening. Y'all remember, right? At noon and at 5 o'clock, it's like somebody, some government official anywhere, everywhere, went on TV and just announced how the entire world is now different today, right? You're like, okay, well, that's different than what it was yesterday. And now that's different. And that's how it felt for a while. Okay. And to a degree, still kind of feels that way. Here's my point. In the middle of some chaos, these 3 phases are what matters. And right now, what matters for those of you who are participating in this pandemic, like the rest of us, it is we're still during the crisis. See, if you want to take a journey, you must first know where you are. Obviously, we know where we want to go. Every one of us have craved immediately for, can we go back to normal, the way things were, the impact, the shock, the suddenness of it all makes no total sense. And then the second thing becomes, okay, how do I get to the end of this as fast as possible? How do I make this go away as fast as humanly possible? And you could make a case that there's a large group of individuals who are still trying to speed it on or pretend as though the new normal is already here, and it is not yet. Another story, another day. Recognizing that it is still during the crisis is key and important to the other 5 things, okay? There comes a point at which, yes, the crisis is over, right? The state of emergency has ended. There comes that point. In my estimation, we are not yet there. Therefore, as an organization, we are still operating as during the crisis. Now, once you get to right after the crisis, cool. But also, acknowledge this by understanding that there's a now new method of operation that must also be tackled and entailed and defined first before it can be followed. And then eventually, yes, we get to the new normal. All three of those phases exist. All three of those phases are existing in existence right now. And yeah, we're all still during the crisis. Now, where we are in response to the during the crisis, how close is that progress bar to the end? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that any human knows, right? It's kind of like that time when you're installing software and it says about 1 minute left and you just sit there and watch it spin forever. That's kind of what it feels like right now. We're like in suspended animation and we just have to keep waiting so we can get to right after the crisis. We're not there yet, but we can get there. But if you've got those three phases, understand that the next 5 things are what you process 3 times so that you can know how to lead your business or grow or even start a business during a crisis. See, the opportunity for those of you who are not yet in business is to recognize that entrepreneurs are rewarded for solving a problem. The bigger the problem, the bigger the solution that is required. The bigger the solution, typically, usually what's larger or what you also have or inherit is what we call the total addressable market or TAM. So your total addressable market becomes huge because everybody's got the problem, which in some cases can make things like marketing easy and maybe even make it feel like a product that quote unquote sells itself. We've heard those lies before too. Now, with that being said, I want to give you the second part of this framework, and then I'm going to show you some articles that are evidence of this in action still right now today, because it has to be for every entrepreneur, right? So let me scroll back up. Okay, scroll. And then for those of you, this will probably be the last reminder before I just jump into it, is if you've got a question, now's the time to be put. If you haven't already, put that in the chat. All right. So here are the 5 areas. So during the crisis, you need to evaluate these 5 areas, right? That I'm trying to highlight right here. There we go. During the crisis, you have to evaluate these 5 areas, which again comes from Ritter and Pedersen's alignment squared model. And then once the crisis, right after the crisis, because that's the second phase, if you will, you need to reevaluate these 5 areas. And then as you begin to proceed to the new normal phase, you need to reevaluate these 5 areas. It is doing this work that has created the new customers that we serve today, the new additional services that we offer today that allow us to understand and where and how to expand today, how to choose which locations that needed to close, which ones can expand. All of those answers are contained with understanding the 3 phases and reevaluating these 5 areas of the business over and over and over again. I'll give you a quick example. When it comes down to, yes, this is a good example and easy to illustrate. When it comes to the customer, in a pre-COVID world, I told you who the customer was, right? We had a significant amount of business from Asian countries who are business individuals individuals from Asia traveling on business for business reasons. Great, wonderful, awesome. Totally filled our Sunday through Thursdays often, and it was great. And that customer completely gone, right? That's what happened. So now the question becomes, is there still a need for temporary housing, even though that customer is gone? The answer is clearly yes. So when you ask yourself, or when we were asking ourselves, so who are our customers now? Well, write this down. Someone type it in the chat for everyone else, okay, in case they're just not taking notes or standing in line at the grocery store. The news. The same news that you watch daily, I watch for leads. One of the best things I can count on the news to do is to tell me where there are problems, period. And those problems, they will tell you where they are, and they do so for free daily. So they were at that time talking about how first responders needed a place to stay that was not their house. I'm like, well, what? That's something I can help with. I just so happen. Do you see what just happened right there? The news is saying, oh, this is a problem. And I'm looking at that going, I know how to solve that problem. The news was also talking about elderly, how if they were staying in like an assisted living facility, breakouts, all this other stuff. Well, wait a minute. You're saying that grandma can't come back home with us, but it's not safe for her to stay there. We need a way for her to stay in isolation, but still have access to the medical care, or have her medical assistants be able to come over. Yeah. Well, see, that was also a situation that can be indeed solved, which is great, right? Because I'm just asking who the customers. Now, mind you, in a pre-COVID world, it's not like those customers did not exist, but I promise you, those people existed, but the need was nowhere near as obvious, right? But that continued, didn't it? Because there was a time where the governors of many different geographic locations were saying things like, please send help. If you have a medical license or something of that, come help, right? And therefore the need for those who had these skills still, but did not have a place to stay, was still there. And again, something that we could do. We could help there. We had the same thing with schools. Many of you remember this or experienced this, and that's whether the child was is definitely for all of the international students, because that one's still an issue, right? And it was still for all of the on-campus housing. That one's going to still be an issue. So these are still areas that are there. But my point is the customer change, not the need. The customer. This also, but I also mentioned that one of the things that was absolutely destroyed was how we tell our customers the value we bring to the marketplace. Our value demonstration, as this particular document calls it, was destroyed. We did not have a way to get in front of the school who was closed to tell the person at the school that, hey, we got a lot of property over here where your people can stay. However, if we don't know how, you're not at work. It was great. It's like you're trying to contact the school and you need a central person, but the person at school wasn't at work, but the parents were like, man, where does little Johnny go? And it was kind of crazy. But my point is, we didn't have a way to reach them. We went straight to flyers at one time. No joke. And in fact, secret hack right here, many of the hotels are still closed, right? Well, the hotels did such a great job of advertising, hey, that we have places to stay. There were still people going to the hotels trying to find a place to stay, but they were being turned away. So, hey, if we left our flyer with people at the hotel, guess what happened? Those people who were being turned away from the hotel suddenly then became our customer. This continues still to this day. I mean, the number of escrows that got canceled, the people who were stuck in between houses. I can do this for a very long time because we took a long time collectively as a CashFlowDiary group, if you will, to come up with a list of people who still needed housing. Despite all the fact that there were no planes in the air, there weren't buses, all this other stuff. Here is my point to you. Did you finish the work? Did you still do all 5 of these areas? Because see, one of the first areas that we had to modify, and this one was obvious for us, but one of the first areas is, do we even have the capabilities we need to run this business? Because something fundamentally changed. Our customers no longer cared, well, rephrase, they no longer cared if the unit was clean, okay? That was, it was always the expectation, but the words they were choosing was not clean. Is the unit clean? That's not the words they were asking. They were asking words like, hey, Has it been disinfected? Ooh, what? That's different, right? So one of the first things, we had to do is we added an entire 66 step project to each and every cleaning that needed to get done so that we could meet the standards that were necessary, that are still necessary, in order to make sure that the place was disinfected and then sanitized and then, yes, cleaned. And if you don't know, there is a difference between those three words. Here's my point. Here's what I would love for each of you to do, because our job, what we want to do, the reason CashFlowDiary exists is to help you become an entrepreneur. We presuppose, it is us. We presuppose that either A, we can help you become one, meaning you are not yet, but would like to be, or you are one, but would like to do it better. And this is where it starts. Is the process begins to thinking about other people, what they need, and how you might be able to solve some of those problems. Yes, in this particular case, we're talking about short-term rentals, and being able to provide clean, safe, affordable housing, even right now. Because see, individuals who did not, in a pre-COVID world, who did not make this shift, just because the world turned, the road curved, they failed to make the turn, and they're no longer here or operating, which has created a very serious lack of supply. That's what has happened. It's created this lack of supply. There are still individuals who we can't serve them all. We can't serve them all. We are still looking for more landlords, all of us, to be in front of, to help them with their vacancies if they are experiencing them. We are still working with old landlords to help them get current in terms of any rents and defer. There's just so much stuff that has to happen. All of this stuff is still in flux. We are still during the crisis. My point to you as the entrepreneur isn't waiting for the perfect moment or hoping that everything is stable, because that's, I don't know where that idea comes from, because it doesn't exist. There is no such thing as security, never was, but we had that belief and did operate under that paradigm. Hopefully that has shifted. And ultimately what I'm saying to you and suggesting is that by asking yourselves these 5 questions deeply, as it relates to during the crisis, just after the crisis, and then yes, new normal, what you will uncover is an opportunity, period. Now that opportunity will come dressed in work. That's just, it looks like work clothes. But if you're willing to go out there and make it happen, then great. Because on the other side, what you have is a new version of yourself that you never, ever expected, which I think is great. Because that's exactly what you see, okay, happening in the marketplace. And here's what I mean. When you look at the marketplace today, you see that there are new kinds of events happening. In fact, most of us have all, like, be honest, give me a little hand raise. Who has recently learned to use Zoom, like, for the first time? You know, was that you? Because we all are learning new things as we speak, not because we wanted to, not because technology is our thing, for no other reason than we have to, and we have to right now, period. Then where else do we go? What did I want? Oh, yes. So new resources coming to the table. Key solutions to delivering contactless hospitality with a lean staff. What? Last year, this time, nobody want that book at all. Like, what are you talking about? Right? Just think about it. Southwest Airlines looks beyond the downturn to a corporate travel recovery. The moves that Southwest have made during this time have been absolutely incredible, in my opinion. And my point is, they have an entire team of people who are asking this type of question, right? And they're still here. Digital transformation. Now, this I still find funny, by the way, because a lot of the techniques and tools and things that are being mentioned, these are all things that we were doing before anyway. So I find that interesting, but that's also great. That just means more providers in the digital space will be here to help it be better for all. And but nonetheless, with the reliance upon and leveraging of technology in a completely different fashion and way, it's here. And that's great because they're asking and have asked the question and are reaching their customer in a completely different way, right? Because that's what's required. We adapt to the environment. All of that is good. And it started with a simple article, right? Because that's what happened, is realizing that the need is still there, but what do we do? How do we go and find, and how do we address, and what is it that you can do? And if someone has said to you in some way, shape, or form, because you were excited about the short-term rental business pre-COVID, now you're like, I don't really know. I'm here to tell you, please go figure it out. Regardless, and again, we help individuals in multiple different countries. And what I'm saying to you is go. Why? Because the need is there and it's everywhere. Hopefully, for those of you who are seeing this for the first time, this was helpful in some way, shape, or form. And for those of you who were here when we were going through this the first time, you maybe remember a few things that you're like, I didn't do that part. I forgot that part, or I need to go back and look at that part because, I just need to go pick that up. I know for us, I'm pretty excited because one of the newest things that we have added to the product mix for the exact same customers, giving them the ability to have access to transportation. So not only can you stay with us, but instead of taking an Uber, here's a vehicle for you that you can rent as well. Being able to add that, yes, it transforms the company, but every company is under the process of transforming. And I am just here to say one very simple thing. Entrepreneurs, you were going to have to organize resources anyway. What better time than when the entire economy is reorganizing itself as well? All right. Let me see if I can find some questions. And here, and kind of go from there, see what some of the comments that you guys have said. Hey, is that Donald? How are you? Is that, that's funny. Adam's family starts coming to my mind for all the obvious reasons. Let's see. Susan is here. What's that? Tawny says, no units yet. You know what, Tawny? Welcome. Thank you for being here. And thank you for letting us know that you're new. I'm glad that you decided to show up. Don't know how you found us. And glad that you're here. Now is the time to get started. Hopefully that has helped you, but feel free to always come back as often as you'd like. John says, I don't know if we just happen to be in a good location or if we just have a slight edge. Cute. He's making reference to as a group, we often read books together. So he's making reference anyway. But personally, we're doing better than a 43. Yes. Yes. John, I was leaving that little shock and surprise out. But yes, the fact of the matter is the speed with which you pivot can make a difference in what your own personal recovery number definitely looks like. We need a new normal. No argument there. I agree. And awesome. My daughter is watching, so that's wonderful. Oh, and so is my other daughter. And Robert didn't want to be left out. Got it. Totally understood. And yes, John, you got it. There are nothing but clues in every bit of news. You just have to know how to interpret what it is that you are seeing. And that is something that I enjoy doing it. I'm like, because it teaches me, it tells me, it informs me where to go and just where to go. So hopefully that makes sense. What does this say? John said, we were recently asked by a potential guest how our cleaning procedures had changed since COVID, right? Having that answer at our fingertips was worth about $1,500 to the bottom line. Exactly. See, it's stuff like that you it's not like he knew that was coming. It was just part of the process. And we were going through it together and we were documenting it together and we were making all of these changes together. And those changes, they still haven't stopped because guess what? We're still during the crisis. And once we get to the next stage of just after, we got to do it all over again because that's part of the work. That's part of the agreement, right? And that's okay, but that's part of it. And then one more time over to the new normal. My point is simple, is that it's work that can be done. You can do it. And it can also be fun because you're solving people's problems, and who doesn't like that? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, for me, it is always fun. I enjoy what I get to do. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day, however much time that was. And feel free to share us with a friend. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.